Hello everyone, my name is James Rankin and I'm hoping you are coming to this video having read the article that I've just done on my blog, which is called The Enterprise Eightfold Path, used to be known as the AppSense Bigot, and I'm kind of laughing to myself a bit because the article I wrote I was hoping it was going to be nice and simple, and it was about how to make an internet kiosk on a Windows 10 machine that would use Edge as the browser. And as I mentioned in the article, how hard can it really be to do this? It's a very interesting question because, as it turned out, how hard indeed can it be? So you can do it, but to make your kiosk run on Edge, we need a bunch of prerequisites. I'll just quickly swap this over. What are the prerequisites we have to do an Edge kiosk? Obviously, first thing is we need a Windows 10 1607 anniversary update vanilla image to work on. That's what we need, and that's what we've got. And the idea is we just apply the configuration that we've done here, and it turns it straight away into an internet kiosk for you. Yeah. Unfortunately, because certain parts of it are very difficult, we have had to use an Ivanti Desktop Now server to achieve this for the tooling. You could do it with a similar sort of product, something like Res or something like that. If you're a master scripter, you could maybe do it. The problems we encountered were to launch Edge at startup, you've kind of got to launch it just after the user's logon's actually finished, and there's also getting rid of the Windows 10 start menu is very difficult without something like AppSense or Ivanti Desktop Now, and maximizing the window itself requires some PowerShell to run after Edge starts and things like that. So if you've read the article, you'll have seen all the problems I've had. So that's why we're using an AppSense server to do it. So it can be done, but you do need some tooling like that, or some excellent scripting if you want to recreate the things we've done in the article via a script. You will also need a user account to auto log on the kiosk. We've chosen one that's called Kiosk User. You also need, I clicked that twice there. You need a naming convention in AD for the kiosk, so you can only apply certain policies to the kiosk. In this case, we've started the name of all the kiosk PCs with the word kiosk, very imaginatively. And you also need to set up an OU for the kiosks with block inheritance enabled, so you don't get any other group policies applied to that. Okay. So let's quickly just show you what we've got. We have here a vanilla image of Windows 10 anniversary update, fully patched, which obviously goes without saying. So if we log this on there, you should see none of the customizations that I normally recommend with Windows 10 have been applied. It's completely vanilla, and if we click on the start menu, we see all of the usual vanilla-y stuff on this enterprise build, all of the modern apps showing and whatnot. There's no applications installed. If we switch across to my domain controller, in our user accounts group, we have a user here called Kiosk User, which is an account with no profile set up or anything like that. It's going to use a local profile. It's not a member of any groups. On the machine itself, just so we know there's no smoke and mirrors stuff going on, I will show you that user, Kiosk User, hasn't been logged on at all. Down the bottom there you can see Cortana popping up with suggestions, which is something that we will get rid of. So that user hasn't been logged on. We also can show you that there is no software that's actually been installed on here. If we go to the Programs and Features section, OneDrive's the only thing that appears to have installed itself on there. And one of the clever, cool things that we're going to do is we're actually going to use, the idea is that we install the AppSense agents, the Ivanti Desktop Now agents onto this vanilla build of Windows 10, and we apply a self-contained config. And we've done some really clever stuff, if you read the article, around this self-containment, because we're actually going to apply the image for the background of our kiosk, that sort of sits it there in the background and marks this kiosk. We're not going to use a file to create that. We're not going to reference a group policy in that config that points to a file. The idea is it's completely self-contained, so we're actually going to use PowerShell within that config. If that file doesn't exist, we're going to build it and apply it, which is really cool. So that file is going to be called internetkiosk.jpg, and it's going to sit in this folder, the C Windows folder. As you can see, it's not in there currently. So the idea is We take this Windows 10 build here. At the minute it's called UKSLD 209. What we are going to do is, currently it's sitting because it's just been built in the default computers OU. We're going to rename it so that it's called kiosk 001 or 002, and we're going to put it in this kiosks OU over here. And if we look in group policy, we should say that that kiosks OU has a block inheritance set on it and just a few generic GPOs set. The logon control one means that auto logon can only log on to machines in this OU. We've got delete copies of cached profiles, roaming profiles, if for some reason somebody logged on with that. And we've got its update policy set up so it only notifies the administrator. So, without further ado, let us quickly go in and rename the machine so that we trigger. So we change it to kiosk 003 because we've done a couple so far. And once we've done this, we will then install the Avanti Desktop Now agents on there and the config, and it should magically, after a couple of reboots, turn into a kiosk machine that runs Edge. So while it's restarting, we will go to Active Directory Users and Computers and refresh that. It's now called Kiosk 003. We shall move this into the Kiosks OU, so it's now in there. Right, so now it's got that name. When it restarts, we will apply the Avanti Desktop Now agents to it. So if we go here to our Avanti Desktop Now server, it's all still badged as AppSense. And let's start up the environment manager and the management console applications. Let's just do that. Right, so they're firing up. The machine is rebooting. And I'm just having a drink of coffee. My apologies for doing that whilst recording. So yeah, while these are starting up, so as I say, we've renamed that machine to kiosk 003. We've put it in the blocked inheritance OU. Now we're going to install the AppSense agents on there, and along with that, a configuration that will look at the machine name, look at the machine location, and convert it into an auto logging on Edge-based kiosk machine. That is the idea. Okay, so just about booted up now. My lab, unfortunately, is very, very slow at booting up, but as soon as it becomes available on the network, we can obviously get those AppSense agents installed. Okay, it's booted up now, and it should be available on the network, so let us go to our Windows 10 deployment group, which, when we have a look at it, should show us the packages that we have assigned to this deployment group. So we're going to be installing, obviously, the deployment agent, the application manager, environment manager agent, and this called FTAs001, because I co-opted a config from before that I was using to do file type associations, but this is the one that specifically deals with the kiosks, turning it into a kiosk. So let us add to this deployment group, because all the ones currently assigned to it are offline at the moment. We shall add kiosk 003. Let's add that in there, and obviously showing us no deployment agent installed. So you might want to do the deployment agent installation through here or through SCCM or whatever deployment tool that you use. And assuming that everything is set up correctly and I don't need to apply the firewall rule changes or anything like that, we should hopefully say that connect up and install. Okay, that's looking good. Let's just keep an eye on it, because once the AppSense agents are assigned to the machine, it should do a reboot, and the config will go straight down onto the machine. But let's kind of sort of get this. When the machine boots up after the deployment agent install, it will then receive the config. However, the thing that triggers the auto logon is actually running at the startup trigger. So because the computer startup trigger will already have passed, and then it receives the config, it'll need a second reboot before it does the automatic logon. So you can see here, it's Got those on, so it should be rebooting any second now. Right on cue. We can see it going down for reboot. So once it's rebooted, we'll need to reboot it again. So it's going off now, configuring those AppSense Ivanti updates. While it's doing that, we can have a quick look through the actual configuration that we're going to apply, just to quickly take you through some of the main components of it. Obviously, if you've read my article, which I'm hoping you will have done, you will already know the kind of rationale behind all of these. So let's just have a quick thumb through it. And obviously there'll be certain aspects of it that you'll need to change to customize this for your own environment. Just keeping an eye on that. It's very slow today, my lab. I'm wondering if I've lost some of the memory has become damaged somewhere in a completely unrelated matter. So the config as it is, we have a couple of reusable conditions that you'll obviously need to change to match your own environment. One of the reusable conditions checks the machine name to make sure it's a kiosk, so that it'll only apply to kiosk machines with particular machine policies. So it's querying kiosk star in this case. Change that as applied. We also have our user, and our kiosk user is called JRR kiosk user. And obviously you need to be careful with that because it uses auto log on. The password gets stored in plain text. So in the reusable nodes bit, we also have we're creating what's called an offload trigger, a custom executable that runs just after the user's logged in. It's created using PowerShell. So if that file doesn't exist, it will create it using PowerShell. That will then run, and when it exits just after logon, it'll then trigger the actual launching of Edge. So when the computer starts up, obviously we're creating that custom executable that's linked to that reusable node. We've got this really cool PowerShell, so if it's a kiosk machine and it doesn't have the wallpaper created in the Windows directory, it'll use this massive piece of PowerShell to actually create that wallpaper file on the fly from a piece of base 64 encoding. As you can see, it is enormous because that's the base 64 encoding of the actual image file that we chose as a source file. So the image file is kind of self-contained, which is brilliant. Thanks to Guy Leach for that. Then we've got the set the automatic logon, so it sets the username, the password, the domain, and the auto logon flag. Obviously, the password, as you can see, is contained in clear text in the registry, so you won't want to reuse that password anymore. And then we have a bunch of machine-based policies that apply to the kiosk machine in there. So then when this auto log on occurs, first of all we launch the offload trigger, which then lets you launch Edge, so that's just something that needs to be there. Then we're setting a bunch of policies, we're locking down the start menu, and then a whole host of stuff to turn it into a kiosk. The only one you may want to change is the desktop wallpaper. If you've created the PowerShell from your own image, you'll need to point it to wherever you're creating that image and whatever it's called. At the minute, this policy is just pointing to something called C Windows Internet Kiosk. Just keeping a quick check on it there in the background. So that's where you would change that if you wanted to use a different file or different image. And then, the offload trigger in process stopped. When that offload trigger exits just after logon, it then actually queries to make sure that you're the right user, and then it does this little bit of PowerShell, which will actually launch Edge. But if you've read the article, that's what launches Edge, that shell command there, and it's just after the user's logged in, so it works okay. Well, then we've got all of this stuff here, which actually, if you've read the article, maximizes the Edge window. It's the only way to try to do it, by sending keystrokes to the active window. Now we're starting Microsoft Edge and it's going straight to Google in this case, and that's because we need to grab the active window by its window title, which is here. So if you use a different site for there, you'll need to write in the window title into there to get it to maximize it. And then when Edge itself launches, we have, sorry, that's the wrong one. That's up here on it base, sorry. When Microsoft Edge itself launches, so if the user matches and the process matches, it then applies a bit of Edge lockdown. They're actually disabled because I've been testing something. I'd better re-enable these, or this. I'm glad I checked this, otherwise the entire thing won't work. Right, so that's set in there. The Edge policies in lockdown, and then when Edge itself exits, what happens is, because the auto logon for some reason only works at boot up time, when the user closes Edge, it restarts the system and logs it back on. So best save and unlock that, because otherwise we'd have been missing some vital functionality there. Let's just check in the background. It's almost finished. Looks like my timing is good. So let's just apply that new configuration out to our kiosk. So we'll send a poll across to make sure it picks up that latest configuration. And then what we'll need to do once it grabs that latest configuration is restart it again. And it should auto log on. Right, so it's just polling now. Apologies if this seems ridiculously slow today. Yeah, hasn't quite finished booting yet. Okay, there we go. So hopefully it should be downloading that config now. Let's give it another poll, just to give it a bit of a kick to make it pick up that new config. Okay, that looks like it's downloading now. Indeed it is. So yeah, this is hopefully all the setup you'll need to do is, famous last words, naturally. But yeah, get the agents on the machine, get the config on the machine, get it restarted, and it should be ready to go. Has that just changed? So it has. Right, so just need a restart, because as I said, it will have applied at that config, but because when it applied the config as it booted up, the computer startup trigger had already passed the things in the config that it has to do in the startup trigger, which obviously includes setting up the auto logon registry keys. Just need that extra reboot. So a tiny little extra bit of overhead when you create a kiosk. You need to reboot it again once the agents and the configuration have gone on there. So we'll just let it boot back up now. Okay, so just a brief pause there to allow it to boot up, and also for me to quickly peruse my email there. But as you can see, the machine has booted up now, and this time it is doing the auto logon as we expected. So another interesting thing to note about auto logon on Windows 10 is probably very niche one, but if like me you're using Hyper-V and connected to the console, you'll need to make sure you've got a basic session selected, because the enhanced session doesn't actually show the auto logon, because the enhanced session essentially is an RDP session. You normally use an enhanced session when you want to do things like being able to cut and paste into the window, and it essentially just leverages RDP session. Under the hood, for instance, if you're not in the remote desktop users group, you won't be able to log on to the console using an enhanced session. So yeah, but I can't imagine that many of you would want to do that. Normally kiosk machines are kind of repurposed physical machines that are just put in kind of internet cafe style locations. So obviously the first logon is going to take a while, because as we showed you, there was no pre-existing profile on that machine for the kiosk user. So it will have to do the usual Windows 10 trickery, sort of chicanery, or whatever word you want to use as a euphemism for crappiness, of taking a long time to log on the first time. As I say, this one's been going about a minute or so already, and it's very, very slow. But yeah, what should be happening now is it should be applying all of those policies that we showed you. All of those policies, again, most of them are group policies. A few of them are registry keys that couldn't be controlled by group policies, and a few Ivanti desktop now lockdown items in there as well to get rid of things like the start menu. On Windows 7, obviously, when you create an internet kiosk, you could turn off all of the functionality on the start menu and just have access to a blank area of the programs menu. So the users could click on the start menu. There would be nothing on it. However, with Windows 10, because of all the modern apps aren't controlled as general shortcuts, they all appear on there. So we've had to kill it through this now. Right, that background you see there is the background that we created using the PowerShell. Now obviously, if you follow the instructions in the article, you can create any background you want and self-content the file. I think that's a brilliant trick. It allows you to make the configurations very modular. You don't have to make sure that files exist if there are any dependencies. You simply write the files into there. So it's booted up now, and it should launch Edge sometime soon. It's meant to launch Edge half a second after the logon actually finishes. However, in my little dinky lab here. It may take a bit longer than expected, but hopefully we should see Edge launch and maximize itself through those keystrokes that we're sending to the active window. And it is going to, oh, it's launched. Please maximize properly. Is it going to do it? Hey, it works. It works. That's a very anemic. Oh, I was going to say that's a very anemic Google thing to do. So there you go. There we have it. We have our edge-based kiosk. Now, as you can see down here, we've used AppSense to kill off the start menu, so the user can't get in there. There's no right-click functionality, anything like that. Some of these things like web notes and stuff like that have also been locked down using Ivanti Desktop now to make it a nice experience, a lockdown experience for the user. It can minimize that, but can't do anything else within the desktop. Completely and utterly locked down. So the only other thing we wanted to do really was just to make sure that if the user kind of visits lots of different web pages, you don't want to save that history because the user coming after them wants to sort of start from a clean slate. So I'm hoping this is going to work, but essentially what we're going to do is we've set some Edge policies when the Edge process launches that should make it empty itself at when the application is closed. So I've just browsed to these two websites here, so I'm just going to faff around with it for a bit. Let's just close this down, and as you can see, when I close Edge, what it should do is, because the auto logon only works at boot up time on Windows 10, don't ask me why, it should now restart that machine. Hopefully. There you go. Everything's very slow, very slow. So that machine is now going to restart, and when it logs back on through the auto log on, it should bring you back your Edge window, and it should have removed all of the necessary stuff out of there. Brief pause there, even though the machine hasn't restarted yet. Sorry, somebody rang me up. What a terrible thing to do, phoning me in the middle of recording a YouTube video. I can't believe the audacity of these people. Actually, while this machine reboots, it's time for a bit of a rant. I've been phoned by a monitoring company. Does anybody think monitoring has just been done to death really recently? There's nothing that makes any of them stand out from any of the other vendors out there, or is there? Maybe more coming soon on this blog about that sort of thing. But right at the minute, nah, there's nothing, no killer features in the monitoring area. I'll shut up. Let's get on with the thing. Stay focused. Stay focused. Focus. Okay, so as it boots back up now, it should go straight back and log into our kiosk environment again. Okay, there she blows, logging on. So let's just, fingers crossed. Because the maximization of the window is the bit I'm kind of most bothered about. Because occasionally, I'd say maybe one time out of 10, the keystrokes get a bit lost, and the X that finishes the maximize seems to get sent to the search bar instead, and you end up with a list that says Javi Alonso and X Factor and other interesting things beginning with X. Quite fortunate, really, actually. We just got Javi Alonso and X Factor. I can't believe they're the two top X's searched for on the internet. Well, at least according to Bing, anyway. So let's just say it's logged us straight back on, which is all well and good. We've still got that lockdown environment in there. So it should launch eggs? No, not launch eggs. Launch Edge and maximize it. As I said, the maximize generally fails about 1 time out of 10. It's not that big a deal, but I'm just particularly conscious that I'm only doing it twice in the video, so 1 time out of 2 would look really, really rubbish. You may hear a scream of anguish from me if that transpires in this situation. So go on, do it. Maximize properly, please. Go on, do it. Yes, of course it works. I had total confidence that that would work. So as you can see by the fact that the privacy reminder has popped up from Google, no, that's not relevant. I clicked remind me later. So let's just check to see if the history has been cleared. So if we type in C and it doesn't find citrix.com. So that's good, because we don't want people's previous internet history and web forms and passwords and all that other associated stuff. That is all being cleared at exit. So that's brilliant. And just to show you quickly the registry keys that actually do that bit, because that is kind of vital. You don't want somebody inadvertently saving a password, next person comes along and logs on and gets their password. So that is set when Edge starts, Edge policies and lockdown. These bits here: clear browsing history on exit, clear download history, forms, passwords, and that does all of that stuff. Incidentally as well, here, this is where the web notes and more and share stuff are disabled in there. You can take those out if you want them. Do make things a bit messy, I think, and you could change that one as well, which configures the home pages that you've got defined in there as well. And I set that up on Windows 10. So if you want to change that, you will need to run the console from a Windows 10 machine, or you'll get the error that I just saw there, because I'm running that on Twitter. So there you go. That is how you make an Edge kiosk, as referenced in my article. Is it straightforward? No, it's not straightforward in the slightest, but it is possible. It is very possible. As I said, the big problem, if you read the article, I'll link to this from the YouTube video as well, is that I had to use AppSense to do it for the main reasons. Locking out the start menu and things like that wasn't possible to do without sophisticated tooling like that. I did try quite a few times to break it by deleting the start menu database, and I couldn't get it to do it. I've had it break on me spontaneously so many times, couldn't get it to do it when I wanted. But yeah, you do have to use an AppSense server to do that. But if you do, I keep calling it AppSense, it's Ivanti Desktop Now. Ivanti Desktop Now, or a similar thing like Res, or maybe even Sensor Profile Unity or something like that. I'm not sure about their full tool sets. And you should be able to apply a config like this. But right this minute, we do have it sat here. We do have it, and we can just say, if you're a Ivanti Desktop Now user, create a Windows 10 machine, bung the agents on it, bung the config on it, and there you have an Edge-based kiosk. So there you go. Why you would want to do an Edge-based kiosk when Internet Explorer is so much easier. You just run it with the -K switch, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Is, again, you know, you might want to be cool and modern and hip and down with the kids, so you might use Edge. But there you go. It is possible. It is possible, and you know, it works once you've got all this stuff in place. So there you go. That's how you create an Edge-based kiosk in Windows 10 from a vanilla Windows 10 machine. Apply an AppSense config, apply some AppSense agents, and Bob's your uncle. Off you go. There you go. That is all from me from now. Thank you very much, and thanks for watching.